So, what happened a few weeks ago? Well, Claude came out with Fable 5, which was a safety version of the infamous Mythos model. What was this Mythos model? Well, it came out, was started to be developed end of February, and rumors leaked out soon afterwards in March. And then April, Dario Amodei released a message saying that their latest model, Mythos, came out. They trained it, and basically it was able to jailbreak and find zero-day vulnerabilities in hundreds, if not thousands, of online major platforms. And this is due to Claude's extensive and superior coding capability. It all started just Christmas Eve last year, when the whole coding community realized that Claude really came out with superior coding ability on their Claude Code platform, and it just went from stage to stage, and they obviously came up with this Mythos version. And in finding out that this was able to jailbreak a lot of different online platforms, Claude, being very ethical and being very worried about public security, started then approaching these major platforms. Now we're talking Google, Microsoft, we're talking Salesforce, we're talking Shopify, anything with, you know, very public facing security measures, that it found all these vulnerabilities, hundreds of vulnerabilities. So what they did is they started giving this access, exclusive access to all of these companies so that they could clean up shop. So they did this for a couple of months before actually releasing in the middle of June or so access to the public now for a more safety conscious model. With some of the major platforms having cleaned up shop and kind of fixed their vulnerabilities, they came up with a model that wasn't able, or was less able, to be used to find these vulnerabilities so that they could release it to the public. A week after, the US government came along and said, actually, we've found instances where Mythos was able to be jailbroken itself, and people could be using it for cybercrime and so forth. Now, obviously, these models are subject to be used in different ways, and Claude is not the only one that you can use this kind of stuff for. All the models, the more superior they get, the more you can use it in different ways. What happened then is Chat GPT came up with Chat GPT 5.6, and that too was stopped by the US government for checking in terms of security, and that's still being vetted, where this week Mythos was released now back into the public after the US government has checked it out. Now, what are they doing? Are they only security based? Are there only security concerns from their side? Or is it something more? Now, when the US said that we wanted to vet it and asked for it to be pulled, it was a court order. Their instructions were not to release it to any other international clients, only to US clients. And of course, Anthropic, who owns Claude, said they couldn't do that exactly. They couldn't have a reliable way of only releasing it to US citizens and not to anyone else. VPNs and server kind of access, you know, all those kind of concerns, it would be very complicated to do that. So they pulled it totally. There has been rumors for the last month or so that the US government wants to slowly start nationalizing the AI frontier models so that they would have a permanent stake in all the models. And of course, that's from a security point of view, that's possibly from an earnings point of view, so that they can put into funds for any other job losses that be happening in the future. And it might also be for their own use of the models. And this is something that has been hotly debated at the moment, and we don't know where it's going. In fact, Sam Altman from OpenAI has actually now voluntarily said to the government, maybe you should take a stake in our company, and he's offered 5%, and they're in talks, and so that's going forward, so we don't really know what's going to happen in this space. Both companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, and even Microsoft, have been pushing for more safety features and more safety regulations, because the US government has been typically, or in the last 2 or 3 years, have not had a lot of regulation around these AI models for the purpose of competition against the Chinese models. They want to be the forerunners of AI, and which they are really. You know, in terms of features and in terms of performance, they do outperform all the Chinese or the Eastern models at the moment. But the Eastern models are coming up. They're 80–90% there, but the big thing is token price. So the Chinese models are possibly 20, sometimes even 50 times cheaper in terms of the usage, the token usage. Where this matters is all the big AI software companies who use AI from the back end pay per token. And the token is about 1/3 of a word, and it's about the input and the output of information into and out of the models. And they sell them per million tokens. So what's typically happening is a lot of companies are using the American models for everyday stuff, but some of the silicon startups, when they've created or vibe coded their apps through the US and the American kind of AI models, they're actually using all the usage in terms of online through the Chinese models. And this is quite an ironic state of affairs, that some of these startups are all using the Chinese models when it comes to the heavy usage for their clients, so in terms of apps and in terms of back end. And in doing this vetting and all of this nationalization, the question is, are these tokens going to go up? And is this going to, ironically, build more of a use case for the Chinese models? Alibaba has Qwen, Moonshot has Kimi, and there's a lot more coming along. These models have been investing a lot less, but in terms of their capabilities are quite up to 80–90% of the performance of the US models, where the US models have been investing billions and hundreds of billions into the training and in terms of the development around the compute. So what's going to happen? Obviously, Trump is very competitive with the East, and he's also very secretive. And so it's not an arms race anymore. It's an AI race. And who's going to win? Who's going to come on top? And of course, the Eastern side of things have always copied, have always innovated themselves at a lower cost basis, but they've been quietly coming around the background and getting into the back door into companies. And this is the same case in terms of AI. And so this is going to be quite an interesting state of affairs and how this is going to play out with the nationalization around the US models. It's also bringing up the question in Europe and in the UK in terms of where is this going to go. If you invest a lot in the US models and then something happens, or you're not going to have access to some of these models, or it's going to get more expensive, who knows? I think if you are heavily invested in some of these models and you are paying quite a premium every month, having a backup around the Eastern models and looking around where they can be used and where the investment is being made is quite something to take note of. Of course, we've got privacy issues, we've got data issues, and so forth. But trying to be more mobile with your skills, trying to be more transient and more transparent is always a good thing. Got more mobility between one and the other, because it's very easy, even just from a common day thing, is to have everything saved in your folders, saved in your skills, but you're not saving it outside. You're not creating it outside so that you could always jump on another model. What happens if everything is in Claude and then suddenly you need to use Chat GPT? Have you got the existing projects or skills transferred into Chat GPT or a second or a third model, or even just on the side so that you can pick up as they go along? These are the kind of questions, the kind of governance that you've got to be thinking about. The business continuity around AI. Quickly, it's coming apparent that the more complex and the quicker you're getting up to speed with AI and have got all your workflows, your automations, and your skills, the quicker you could be out of business if one of these platforms goes down. So backing up or transferring or making sure you've got mobile skills and workflows is really a good thing. And that's it from me in terms of the Sales and Marketing Engineers AI news update. I hope to see you soon.